Hey there! Today we're going to talk about this pen. This pen was sent to me by Pedro. Pedro is a fountain pen reviewer on YouTube, so he's like one of my colleagues. And he lives in Belgium, and he is a very nice guy. And he had two of these, and I said I liked them, and he sent me one. So that's very, very nice. Thanks a lot. Today we're going to have a look at this pen. I'll cover the parts, tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and I'll do a writing sample. I will also link to Pedro's review in the description, and just check out his channel, because he's I think he has some really nice reviews on there. Alright, pen. It's not a small pen. It's pretty large. It's Chinese, and it's by the brand Yiren, and I have used other pens by that brand. I think it's one of those interesting Chinese brands. They launch some fairly cheap pens. I can't say cheap because people apparently have negative associations with that. They have inexpensive pens, and some of those are actually really nice. And I think this, for example, is a really nicely made pen. As you can see, it's white, and there's not exactly a million white fountain pens out there. So I like the general design. Let's start with the thing on the cap. This is what I might actually call the jewel, because it's sort of blue, see-through, clear thing that actually looks like a jewel. It's probably plastic, but you know, it looks pretty cool. It has the YR in there. I'm sure they're not trying to say why are you doing this or something. It's probably just Yiren something. As you can see, there's quite some nice detail there. It may actually look a bit like an eye. I see a pupil, I see an iris, etc. So very, very fascinating stuff. Okay, then we have the clip. The clip has some detail on it, which for some reason I consider to be fairly Chinese. Looks a bit like, I don't know, chariot stuff going on there or whatever. But the real beauty of this pen lies in the blue dragon. This is the design. I try to keep the pen as still as I can, but at this close range it will shake a bit, I'm afraid. Whoops. Now you see there, you got the head of the dragon. It's on there. Is that tacky? Is it kitsch? Well, you either like it or you don't. Here in the Netherlands there is a place called Delft where they have a type of, what do you call that? Probably lacquer or something in a very typical color of blue. Delft Blauw, that's what we call it. And this reminded me a bit of that. This may be a little bit lighter, but that's always blue on white. That's the only two colors they actually use. And you know, I think it's funny. There's quite some detail in the dragon, you can see, and it's for me it works. But I can see that for some people this might you know, not actually work. Then you have the barrel. On the barrel there is some detail too. No more dragons, just some of these sort of ornaments. Then at the end, this looks like a blind cap, except it's not. This is not a piston filler, but it still looks pretty cool. All right. So you have the clip. You have that center band. There's nothing on the center band, so I don't really want to go into that. You open up the cap by just pulling it off. As with a lot of Chinese pens, it's pretty tight, so you really have to exert some pressure there. You have the section. The section is metal. I should probably mention that the entire body of the pen and the cap are also metal, so it's a pen with some weight. Here we have the nib. The nib is actually a two-tone nib. Maybe a little hard to see. My hand's blocking the light. There we go. It actually is. It's a two-tone nib. The interesting thing is that it actually says Yiren 22K and then GP. 22 karat gold plated. Yeah, I think so too. But that doesn't matter. In all honesty, I thought the nib was fairly smooth. It wrote pretty well, straight out of the box, didn't do any adjustments, had a fairly wet line, which is also quite nice. I kind of like it. Okay, we have this section. It's tapered and then it flares out a bit. Nothing too fancy there. The pen came with a converter. which is a fairly standard Chinese type converter. I've seen these a couple of times now. And the converter says Yiren on it, and it has a little sort of flower emblem. Just that. And then there's the word Yiren down there near the threads, and it says 828. I suppose 828 is the model number. Okay, you screw that back in place. As I said, it's not a small pen. You can post it because of this sort of faux blind cap, and it posts securely. The cap really pushes down nicely onto that. Then you've got a big pen, which is, I mean, it's definitely big. And although the cap and barrel are metal, yes, it is a bit top heavy because it's so big, but I thought it was fairly comfortable. I've had heavier pens that were not so, so pleasant to post. Okay, what do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Well, I like the design, and I like the finish. I like the general shape of the pen. It's a bit blocky. And yet it's, I mean, it's nicely rounded off near the cap there. No sharp edges or anything. I kind of appreciated that. There were some nice chrome highlights near the barrel, the center band, and then on the cap, which I think makes for a fairly balanced pen. The clip actually works. It's tight, but not too tight. The nib, I thought, was a surprise. Works, as far as I'm concerned, really well. Smooth and wet. So what do I not like about the pen? Well, in all honesty, there isn't a whole lot. If I have to pick something, this section, it's metal too, as far as I could. I got the feeling it's metal, not plastic, but it could be plastic with some sort of, I don't know, coating on it. This can be a bit slippery, and I know that some people don't really like that. Now, it is tapered, and it does flare out a bit, so you do get a good grip, but this could be an issue. I can completely see how this finish would not work for everyone. It might be too flashy for some. Also, because from a distance you have no idea what the blue spot is. You really have to get close and actually study, and then you will see it's a dragon. So I can see how some people would not appreciate that. I think there's nice eye for detail. I think this sort of eye thing on top is quite nice. It's actually just a bit of blue plastic with some sort of gold meandering around it, but it looks like an eye. I think that's cool. I mean, Eye of the Dragon. It sort of fits in as far as I'm concerned. That's really all I can say. These pens are affordable. You can find them on eBay. You can find them in some other spots, but usually you don't pay a whole lot more than $10, $15, something like that, and that includes shipping from China. You get a decent pen. You get a pen you can fool around with. I mean, you can work on this nib, you can smooth it out, you can make it a bit wetter. If it doesn't work, what if you lost $10? I mean, you can probably just slap on another nib, because these are pretty standard, I think, number 5 nibs, I would say. So, I mean, you can probably just throw something else on that. Right! What we need to do next is take some measurements, and then, I think, a writing sample. So, here we go again. This still probably takes me half an hour, because I'm not that... for some reason, I have some issues operating the calipers. This is the easy bit. So the whole pen capped is, I would say, 139 millimeters, and that is 5 inches and about 29/64 of an inch. If that doesn't make any sense, then that's too bad. I try to get this inch system, imperial system, pinned down as well as I can. Okay, uncapped, I get 122 millimeters. That is 4 inches and 52/64 of an inch, right? Anything else? Yes, the grip section. I want to see the... Okay, so at the narrowest point, the diameter is 9 millimeters, and that is blah blah blah. That is 22/64 of an inch. And at the widest point, does anyone notice I do seem to be getting a bit more fluent with the calipers? I think it's going faster. That's the widest point. It's about 10 millimeters of the diameter of the section, or 26/64 of an inch. Right. And then someone said, could you add the weight? I suppose I can. The only thing is I have an analog letter weighing scale. This is all I got. I don't have any fancy digital stuff, so this is an approximation. and you'll just have to bear with that because it's all I have. It comes down to slightly under 50 grams, which I find hard to believe. Is my scale aligned properly? Yeah, I think it's about 45 grams, which is heavy. Then again, it's all metal. Yeah, it does make sense. Alright, there you have it. Writing. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Alright, so here we go with the Yiren Blue Dragon. The ink is by Noodlers, and it is Green Marine. Pedro gave me not just the pen, he gave me that ink too, which is of course very, very nice. The nib has no grade on there, but I would say this is something between fine and medium. And the paper, should you wonder, is Rhodia. There we go. Okay, let us do some writing. Writing, I can tell you, is very smooth. It's pleasant. You know, with these Chinese pens, a lot of people are afraid that writing is going to be very scratchy. Well, in all honesty, I think it's pretty smooth. You can pull out the nib and feed the friction fit. You can make them a bit wetter. You can just leave them in and smooth them a bit on some micro mesh or something. But in all honesty, I think it's pretty smooth to start with. Let's do some fast writing. I don't really see any skipping. Ink flow seems to be fairly consistent. Yeah, it looks good. Maybe we should have a look at wetness. Well, as you can see, you get a fairly nice even patch of ink, which is quite wet. Now, this is Rhodia paper, it's not the most absorbent, so it will take a while for ink to dry, but even so, now I've been talking a bit longer and you can see it's still a bit wet. So this pen lays down a nice wet line of ink. Maybe we want to have some information on line variation. This is no pressure, and now I start to add more pressure. And this is no pressure yet again. So as you can see, you can definitely squeeze some variation from your nib. I wouldn't call this a nail. It may not be the springiest nib out there under no pressure, but with some pressure it definitely opens up a bit. And that's all there's to it. So let's all thank Pedro for sending me this pen. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.